Yo, 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 what's up, y'all? Welcome everybody into Swish for Real. This is your boy Big Mike. How y'all living? I got my co-hosts in the building. Boogey Bob, what's up with you, man? How you doing?
Yo, yo, yo. Welcome, Big Mike. Thanks for having me in here. Having a blessed week and enjoying this cooler weather and kind of crying on my pillow at night. These late game losses that the Mavericks do in one possession, but, it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, I've been posting on the chat room in our YouTube channel about that, man. I don't know what to say about it, man. But hey, we'll get to it when we get to it. Wild Dog, what's up, man? How you living?
Hey, still no bark. I'm barkless dog still. So
Wild Dog in the
thank
building.
y'all. As always, grateful for another day. Grateful to be here, brothers.
And congrats to your son them winning the district championship.
Yes, man. It's like he's a freshman, but it's like he's had to step up for injuries, and he started the game. So it's like I'm like, man, just enjoy this. Do your part. You just playing contact football his first full year, and it's like
Nice.
this kind of situation don't always come around. It's like, oh, we're district champs. I'm like, slow down, bro. Like, appreciate it. You could be district champions and push through state your freshman year and never see it again. Enjoy the moment. Just trying to help him enjoy the moment. So they're right back at it next. They have a bye, so that's why he's here. He's in there gaming now. So I have him. So they have a bye, and then their first state playoff game is next Thursday.
Yeah, and I don't know if people know, but his son is a heck of a football player. So as a freshman, man, so congratulations, man, to Jet, man. Salute to him. And today, guys, we have a special guest, man, and I've been trying to track this guy down. I sent some messages out to Thailand and China and Vietnam, everywhere we could figure out where he's at. We finally got him on the podcast. Earl Sneed, everybody. What's up, Earl?
What's up, fellas? What's up, man? You didn't have to go out to Thailand to get me though. I'm still in DFW right now.
Stateside. Man, thanks for
Stateside.
coming on. We appreciate you joining the panel, man. And we got a lot of stuff we want to talk about today. So we first want to get in depth with you. So I'm gonna pass it over to Boogey Bob. We have some questions that we want to ask you, and just answer the questions and give us a little bit about yourself, and we'll keep the podcast moving. So, Bob, we're gonna start with you, my guy.
All right, Mr. Earl K. Sneed.
What's up?
What or who inspired you to get into sports broadcasting?
Stuart Scott. Honestly, I don't know if people remember. He used to show the same Sports Center in the morning on a loop. And before I would go to class, this is around when I was in junior school. They would show that same Sports Center on a loop, and I would sit and just memorize everything that Stuart Scott said. I would master his delivery, so whenever I was with my stepdad, I could just repeat basically everything that Stuart Scott said and regurgitate all of the stats that he was listing off, and it let me know that I could learn stats very easily. I just had to work on being a broadcaster in terms of delivery. And then once I got into journalism when I was in college, I knew I wanted to do broadcasting, but I also wanted to write. So I had a interesting career in terms of going from radio to being a writer to doing some TV to going back to being a writer. But I always wanted to be like Stuart Scott when I was growing up.
That's a great role model.
It's good. I have two more questions for you. How long did it take you to prepare for game day?
Game day as an athlete or game day as a reporter?
Well, like a Mavericks game
Because
when you were
game day
emceeing Insider Report and all that. How long did you spend actually preparing for?
Basically all day. Go into the office and type up a game preview, which was basically what happened the day before. If the team was on a back-to-back carry over. I would go to shoot around, and that would be at like 10 a.m. to 10:45. I would do a shoot around report, and then I would leave. I would get a workout in about 5:30 for a coach's press conference that would normally start at 5:45, and then the game would start at 7:30, and I would be working probably until 1 o'clock in the morning doing that. So it would basically just be an all-day event as a reporter. Yeah, definitely.
Wow. Wow. And then my third question is just because a few years ago when we won the championship in the ring, I got to meet this person in person. What was it like to work with Allie D?
Oh, Allie D. That's our girl for life.
Give me a good Allie D story.
Anytime she ever needs me. I have a story. It's a little too X-rated. I don't know what it's.
Well, did she ever sing to you?
It's not X-rated. The story's not X-rated. It was something that she said. I don't know if it would be appropriate for me to say. It was just fine for her to say. But I'll say it like whenever a athlete or a man is trying to get fired up for a competition, they might say man up, to get them fired up for what they're about to undertake. When we would do our Mavs, she would say something that's equivalent to her that I couldn't say, but it would get us fired up to let us know it was time to tape the show. And it wasn't time for us to film every single week until she said that. And that was like, okay, let's get serious. And so I appreciate her as a friend, as a colleague, but also just showing me the ropes in terms of making the adjustment from being a writer to being a broadcaster and taking that same information, but being able to deliver it in small pieces, bite-sized pieces on air. So Allie's awesome. Anytime I see her, I will tell her that she's awesome and give her a big hug.
Oh, that's what's up, man. Anything you want to top on that, Boogey Bob?
No, I'll leave some meat. We talk about leaving meat on the bone here, so I'll leave some meat on the bone for Mr. Wild Dog.
Oh, I would just, when you first said brother Earl was coming on, I was like, oh man, it's been so long, my brother in Christ, and I would just like, with my memory, I just remember thinking of Earl as a basketball savant, right? My brother in Christ, and a poet. So I hope you never let the pen down, brother. Wherever your career takes you, I always thought of you as a poet. You're like, really? It's basketball? Yes, basketball is a dance, it's poetry, it's all of that. So appreciate you, brother.
I appreciate that, man. And we have some stories that we could tell off air.
Yes, off air.
The Wild Dog is a really good dude, man. All of the Maniacs are really good dudes, but I only got really close with a few, and Wild Dog is one of them. He's a really good guy, man. So I appreciate everything he just said and all of the stories that we have that we'll talk about off air whenever the time is right, for sure.
Oh boy! Next time I'm going in a game with Wild Dog or some party, I'm going to be needling him. I need some dirt here, bro. I need some dirt.
So Wild Dog, you have any questions that you want to ask, Earl?
Oh, just if you can handle a little bit of rapid fire, Earl, because I know you probably already had to answer this, but a lot of times we have discussion of things, and I just want to kind of I want to kind of pick your brain to see where you at. Like, for instance, for the 2025, do you have any favorites or projections for MVP?
Oh, for MVP.
And
I think we're going to get into this later from looking at the rundown.
Yeah.
I really think Jason Tatum is on a mission this year. I think, first of all, he didn't play that well for the first 4 games of the NBA Finals. Stepped it up in the closeout game, but then Steve Kerr not playing him in the Olympics a couple of games. I think he
Yeah.
had something to prove. And so, like right now, he's playing well. Boston's playing well. Cleveland is playing unbelievable. So I would throw Donovan Mitchell into that mix or Darius Garland. But I think before it's done, I think that Jason Tatum's going to have something to say about that.
All right. And then Big Mike, last episode we were talking again about, defensive players and then even defensive player of the year. Mm-hmm. So, Earl, what's your take on potentially, favorite defensive player or who might land as the defensive player of the year for 2025?
My favorite guy to watch right now defensively is Anthony Davis because he can literally guard on the perimeter. He's blocking 3-point shots, but he can also recover and be the backline defense because the Laker guards are not very good defensively. So he's cleaning up a lot of their errors. I think who will probably win it, and I think he could have won it last year, is Victor Wembanyama. I thought he, and I think had he not been a rookie, he probably would have won it last year. I thought he was awesome last year. I think Wemby is what you're seeing, what he's able to do defensively is the sky's the limit for what he can do. So I think he will end up winning it. But I thought Anthony Davis should have won it last year. I think he might be in the MVP mix this year, and his scoring is up. So that what he does defensively. But I think his versatility is what makes him the best defender.
Now, I know Draymond made a quote stating that he should be in that defensive player of the year conversation. Your thoughts on that?
I think Draymond always thinks that he should be.
Yes, yeah.
And he is. Like what he's doing, and he's only 6'5", 6'6", and he's guarding the top interior player most nights, but he can also switch out and defend the top perimeter player when he needs to. I think his versatility is insane, and he's also the orchestrator of their Golden State's offense. They run a lot of offense through him as a point forward. So I have no problem with Draymond saying that. I just think what Victor does, what Anthony Davis does, that's kind of unrivaled in today's NBA, where it's kind of positionless and guard on the perimeter, but also defend inside and be that backline defense. But I have no problem with Draymond saying that.
No, he's legit with what he does for Golden State. He's been the anchor for that team for many, many years defensively. And before we close out this particular part of the segment, my question is since I'm a film guy, what got you into the film industry? I've seen you posting a couple of things about the going to film festivals and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I 2 things in college. My minor, it was a double major for a while, was African American Studies. I dropped it down to my minor, but I learned a lot about African American film and film in general, but mainly Black film and Black filmmakers.
Okay.
From going back to the early days with a Paul Robeson or Oscar Micheaux, who you don't hear about now, to moving on to Spike Lee and John Singleton. And Black directors really, I was intrigued by the behind the scenes, but also on screen when you had the first people that kind of identified, I identified at least, with Black excellence were actors. When you look at Harry Belafonte or Sidney Poitier, like
yes.
they kind of got me into Black film. But now I'm just interested in film altogether now. So yeah, I'll go out and cover a film premiere or a red carpet screening and stuff like that because I'm really interested in that. And I ultimately see myself moving on to be a producer of films. Specifically, I would say faith-based films. Like
Okay.
Brother Wild Dog said, I'm really big on my faith, and I feel like people like myself that kind of draw off of their faith as inspirations always have a story to tell. So I want to do sports-based, faith-based films,
Nice.
kind of like a Blindside, stuff like that, or the Kurt Warner story that they had come out a few years ago. I want to get kind of behind the scenes on doing stuff like that.
That's
Oh
good.
man, that's
You did
amazing.
your
Right now I'm
homework.
working myself. I'm working on a comedy. We've been filming it for a minute. Actually, Wild Dog actually has a small part in it. He was part of the crowd that we were doing. It's a pretty good comedy. It's not your typical you know up run of the mill comedy. It's funny. I wrote it, most of it, for the most part. I wrote about like 90% of it, but it's pretty funny. I'll have to send you the link to it so you can see the YouTube channel, all the behind the scenes stuff. But
Nice.
yeah, we'll definitely have to chop it up more about film, man, because that's one of the things I love to do. Bob?
Nice.
Yeah. So Earl, you may already know this, but The Chosen was
Yes.
a faith-based series that was started with a very low amount of money. It was actually filmed just north of Weatherford, Texas. And the next season, they built a whole new studio in Midlothian, but about 45 minutes to an hour just outside of Dallas. You can visit all the sets and things that they used to film The Chosen.
Nice. I saw when they did the screening down here in this area. I thought it was a Grapevine, but I'm glad you said it was Midlothian. Uh, I want to check that out. It's a great series, also. I feel
Yeah,
like
if you just Google Capernaum Studios, it will show you where it's at. It's really close to Weatherford.
okay.
The town that it's in is pretty small.
I
Uh,
will definitely check that out. I appreciate that.
so you're going to
Absolutely.
be the next Spike Lee?
I wouldn't say that much. He's a legend. Um, but I guys like Devon Franklin that have a faith-based storyline behind it, and Devon had something coming out. I don't want to promote for him, but he has something coming out with Tyler Perry on but Bathsheba uh, coming in. It's an R&B series
Mm,
out on Netflix pretty soon. And I kind of want to do stuff like that.
So
nice.
have you ever thought about maybe a documentary or biography about Stuart Scott since you watched him? Because that was a heck of a speech he gave at the ESPYs.
It
Sure
was.
was.
And I know they have a 30 for 30 about to come out.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so before I endeavor on something like that, I want to see what the 30 for 30 kind
Yeah.
of highlights. Because his speech was awesome, and his daughters have kind of used that as their platform for keeping his memory alive. So
Yes.
I want to see how much of the 30 for 30 kind of covers that.
Nice. Nice. Oh man, that's hey. Once you get ready to do it on your own, let me know, man. I'll be more than happy to come out and volunteer or whatever you need me to do for as film goes. Because I've been in it for a minute, man. So I'm not new to it. I'm kind of getting true to it. So, but yeah, let me know, man. So we're gonna actually move on to the next topic, and we're gonna talk about some of the best rebounders, current and past. And I know there's been quite a few that we can talk about as far as the current ones goes, but we're going to start with you, Wild Dog, and I want you to give me your opinions on your top five in your mind. But there's the true top five, which we have statistically. But what are you thinking as far as your top five if you had to just name them off the top of your head?
How did I know you were going to throw me a curve with top five, which I don't mind, especially when it comes to old school. So for me, I mean, rebounding is an art. It's just, you got the fundamentals and the skills to kind of position yourself, but it's something how some guys just way more often than not find themselves in the right spot at the right time, right? And even when they're off a little bit, can just steal candy from a baby when the mama's holding them, and nobody complains about it. So with that being said, just being tall is not enough for me. So going old school, right, black and white, you got to give props to Wilt Chamberlain. With all the in that, a big man who was highly athletic. We talked about how he was a track star at Kansas. Wilt knew what he was doing, And so next I want to give flowers to Moses Malone, the big man. Not only did Moses Malone himself, demonstrate the art of the rebound, right? But how many others, including Sir Charles Barkley, that he helped influence and to help develop their game and the skill and the art of rebounding. So big props to Moses Malone. And then moving up, coming into, more recent years, I'd like to give props to the fundamental Tim Duncan, right?
The big fundamental.
Talking about someone that always seemed to know where the ball was going to go. Like he even knew like offensive rebounding, like he knew when the shot was off somehow, you know what I'm saying? Or like he just knew like if they missed, the ball comes in this area. He always knew exactly where to be and to block out and position himself. Big props to the big fundamental Tim Duncan. And then one of my personal favorites, right, is going back to old school days. I'm from Louisville and big fan of University of Louisville. So Wes Unseld.
Wes Unseld.
Wes Unseld could not score a point, could not, what I'm saying? His whole game could literally be control of the ball, possession of the ball was Wes Unseld's superpower. You know what I'm saying? Wes Unseld truly made rebounding and possession of the ball a superpower, right? And then we've covered this young man before. I know he's talked about coming back into the league or whatnot, or however it might play out. But right now, he's at home. So, and I know Big Mike, you're a fan of his, and we've spoken to him. We've compared him to Shaq, right? But I'm giving props to Dwight Howard and his rebounding skill. Okay? And
Not
then,
a bad choice.
And then when it comes to new school and like current players, let me just run them off real quick in no particular order. LeBron James, Kevin Love, Rudy Gobert, my man Al Horford, and Russell Westbrook.
Oh, yeah. Russell, he'll get you triple-double, man, real fast. Rebounds.
Scrape that plate clean.
Nah, facts. Earl, so let me ask you this question. When it comes
my bad. I was a power forward, so this is really my area. This is my plate anyway.
Already.
Rebounding and power forwards, that is my plate now.
Nah, facts. So we're gonna swing it over to Earl, man. When you're thinking about rebounding, what comes to mind when it comes to a good rebound? And then give us your list of who you think should be top 5. And just throwing out stats, just no stats involved. If you had a top 5, what is the most things people need to look for when it comes to rebounding, and particularly in your point of view, and what are your top 5s?
I think Wild Dog said something that's the art of rebounding, knowing where the ball is going to go and how it bounces off the rim or the backboard. That's an art. It's a skill, and I think Bill Russell was the best at doing that. Like everyone brings up the block shots and how he kept the ball in play, but he would score. He would gather the rebound the same way. He would know how the ball was going to ricochet off of the rim of the backboard, and I think that's an art. So he would be in my top 5. He wouldn't be number 1. He would be probably number 3. I would say Wilt would also be in there. I think Wild Dog had a great list. Number 1 for me is Dennis Rodman.
Oh, the worm.
And you got to think, Dennis Rodman was doing this at 6'7", 6'8". But if you go back to his Detroit days, 1991-92 season, he averaged 18.7 rebounds a game at 6'7". The next year, 92-93, he averaged 18.3 at 6'7". And the following year, 17.3. And he was oftentimes guarding the other team's best player. It didn't matter if it was Michael Jordan on the perimeter. It didn't matter if it was Shaq in the interior or Karl Malone. He had that versatility. So he would be my number one all-time rebounder. I would put. I didn't think about Wes on set. That's a good one though. That's a
Yeah.
really well. In terms of defensive rebounding and his outlet passes, he might be the greatest ever in that aspect. But Moses Malone, offensive rebounding, I would put him in there. And then Sir Charles at 6'5", what he was able to do
The
round
round the rebound.
So we didn't leave anyone for you, Boogie Bob.
So let me ask you a quick question though, in reference to the Mavericks, and what made me kind of keep an eye on how people rebound. My favorite player at the time was Popeye Jones, man. I was like, that dude can rebound.
That's a good one.
Yeah. My bad, Boogie.
I still have a few.
All right. So, Earl, did you have a chance to see Popeye Jones play? What were your thoughts on him as far as a rebounder?
I did. I briefly watched him from afar as a NBA fan before I went off to college, and I think he got traded or he moved on before I came back to Dallas Fort Worth. But Popeye is another guy that made a whole career out of putting his big butt in the right position, boxing guys out and getting the rebound. He kind of understood where the ball was going to go and how to position himself. So that's a really good one.
And I'm still a huge fan of Popeye Jones. I would watch him at the sidelines, assistant coaching, and I even became fairly decent friends with his brother David. May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
Thanks. So, Bob, we're gonna swing it over to you, man. We got to get your list, man, and give us some insight on your thoughts on what a good rebounder is in your top 5.
Well, I will start with Popeye. I'm glad you did mention him because at the time, Popeye was like 6'8", and they called him kind of pudgy. He wasn't terribly athletic. He had great hands. So I was like, it's not always the best jumper, the tallest guy. But the one thing, I mean, the Mavericks in the 90s, let's just face it, they sucked. But Popeye was worth watching.
Yeah.
And this is where I learned is that they said, why they draft Popeye? They said, well, players in D1, D2 college that can rebound, that's the one skill that translates into the NBA. And so you and I, we coached, so I had a lot of drills that they had to throw it up against the backboard and take their hands and catch it. And a lot of kids would catch it down here. Like, no, you got to catch it above your head and you got to jump up. Just to teach them.
Meet the ball in the air. Yeah, meet the ball in the
air and catch it up, So I was always teaching them the mechanics behind rebounding and positioning, how to block out. So, Wild Dog's right about the art of it. But a lot of rebound comes down to hustle. So when Earl mentioned Westbrook, I thought about, Westbrook's 6'1", but he's flying through the air and pursuing it. But I broke it into 3 categories, and these players have already been covered, but I had your Hall of Famers, Wilt, Bill, Moses, and Kareem. I'm partial to Moses, so he would be on my list. I had your benchmark players, Duncan, Malone, Rodman, Barkley, Bird, Hakeem. And you can't, without the worm, you don't have a three-peat in Chicago. And what was Wild Dog's biggest dance move? The worm. The worm. But I was kind of a decade ahead. As Barkley, a little shorter than Rodman. Barkley was one heck of a rebounder. I think they listed him at 6'6", but he's more like 6'4", 6'5". He wasn't much bigger than a lot of today's shooting guards. And Barkley, he was a man. They called him the round mound to rebound for a reason. Bird didn't get enough credit for his rebounding. He gets a lot of credit for his passing, but he was very good. So of the benchmark players, I mean, Duncan was on the list. Like the Worm and Barkley will be 1A and 1B for me. Currently, and Earl mentioned a couple of these: LeBron, Westbrook, Al Horford, Gobert. But the two that y'all left on the plate for me, thank you. I get to eat. Draymond Green is a heck of a rebounder. We talked a little bit about him being the center and anchor, but if you can't rebound, defense don't end until you rebound the ball. And Draymond is well underrated. And this guy finally got a chip with the Nuggets. But DeAndre Jordan, he was like a vacuum cleaner on the boards when he was with the Clippers.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if there was a ball anywhere close, it was his. And he would literally fight off his own teammates to get the board. And I think he wasn't in the 17 or 18 that Earl was talking about, but he was in that 12 to 14. And you have to remember, there's only about 40, 45, sometimes 50 rebounds in the game if a team is shooting bad. So for Rodman to average 18 out of 4, that's like half the rebounds of the whole game for the team. But DeAndre, man, primetime DeAndre and Dwight Howard, that would be a tough. If we're just looking at rebounding, that would be a tough call between those two guys.
Yeah, both of them are pretty special. And I know we talked about him off air, Dirk Nowitzki, man. He's on the stats list. He's 26, right below Patrick Ewing, which is amazing. And I looked at what Bill Russell did. He was second all time in rebounds with less games than Wilt Chamberlain. It took Wilt Chamberlain 1,045 games to reach them to be number one. It only took Bill Russell 963 games to be number two. So that tells you a lot about who was the better rebounder. So I believe Bill Russell was a much better rebounder than Wilt Chamberlain because he did it in less games and was in second place, which says a lot about his career.
Yeah, he didn't have the numbers, the player I'm getting ready to talk about, but Willis Reed was underrated.
Yep.
Yes, Willis Reed, that's good.
Facts. All right, man. We did cover a lot, man. As far as rebounding go, my favorite rebounder, I'm pretty sure you guys already know who it is, and he's not like on the tops or anything, but always Chris Webber. So that's my guy. So I like that guy. But speaking of another guy who actually is in the same position Chris Webber was, and this guy is a local talent, and I met him once, and it's been a long time, and he was one of those iconic guys that was in the sport of basketball. And Earl, we want you to start this conversation, and we're going to be talking about the Gran-MaMah himself, Larry Johnson. What are your thoughts on him, and what do you take from his career, and give the people your ideas of what he was as a player?
Yeah, I didn't pay attention to Larry when he was at UNLV, so I didn't get to see the Running Rebels. I became aware of Larry Johnson once he got to Charlotte. And I wanted to have a starter jacket because of Larry Johnson. I have 3 distinct memories of Larry Johnson, and most of them don't have anything to do with basketball. I was a huge fan of watching Family Matters. And Gran-MaMah, when he's Steve Urkel's teammate on Family Matters, one of my favorite episodes ever.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. And then the brawl when Larry Johnson's with New York against Miami, and he and his former teammate Alonzo Mourning get into it. You have Jeff Van Gundy on Alonzo Mourning's ankle, trying to bite his ankle. That's a distinct memory of mine. And then growing up, I was a huge Reggie Miller fan. But I remember, I think it was the Knicks and Miami when Larry Johnson had the 4-point play.
Yes.
And in a lot of ways, he was that undersized 4-man that was ahead of his time. He would be perfect for today's NBA because he could play on the perimeter but he could also play inside if he needed to. I think he was just 20 years ahead of his time.
Yeah, that dude was a beast, and his physique, man. When you see him in person, the dude looked like a freaking robot. I mean, what do you do to keep yourself that fit?
Yeah, he's really strong, and I know the Knicks take care of a lot of their former players, so he goes to Knick games all the time, and he looks like he's still in great shape.
Nah, I wouldn't doubt it, man. That iconic gold tooth is what most people remember him from, man. Like that's a Dallas thing. It's got to be, man.
Definitely a Dallas thing. But
Facts.
I remember he made the starter jacket popular to me. That my first starter jacket. A lot of people in Dallas had the Cowboys starter jacket, but I wanted that turquoise and purple and white Hornets starter jacket, and I got one eventually of the Charlotte Hornets because of
Yep.
Gran-MaMah.
Do you remember those bomber jackets, those long ones?
Yeah.
Man, my friend had a Chicago Bull one that was so amazing. It was black with the red and white bull on the back. I was like, oh man, where'd you get that from? It had to be a $200 jacket at the time.
Yeah. You can get it a lot cheaper now.
Not facts.
Yeah.
Wild Dog, Walk Dog. Your memories of the great Gran-MaMah Larry Johnson.
Oh man, just man, just some Converse commercials, man. You know what I'm saying? We put Converse back on the map, baby. Gran-MaMah, and like I said, just his marketability. Him being so down to earth. Being a product of Texas, and then just being so marketable, and like you said, that blinging smile. You know what I'm saying? True to his roots, and just honestly, not everybody is. You'd be like the next guy. Well, this guy, not everybody can pull that off. And so, and then you're gonna, put in millions of dollars of investment in marketing. You need to hit a home run, right? You know what I'm saying? And Larry Johnson and Converse with Gran-MaMah, his alter ego, definitely hit a home run. And I just wanted to add that he also made cameo appearance. We were talking about movies earlier, offset, and he was in the movie Eddie with Whoopi Goldberg.
He was.
The cameo with the Knicks, I believe, at the time. And then he was also, don't forget, people think Space Jam, they think, oh, MJ, but don't forget that MJ brought his friends along, you know what I'm saying, for Space Jam.
And Sean Bradley.
Yeah. And that included Larry Johnson.
Muggsy Bogues.
Yeah.
Muggsy Bogues, yep.
Space Jam,
I almost forgot he was in Space Jam, man. That reminds me of so many things I've seen as a youngster. Space Jam is one of them.
And I know Boogie,
one of the most stars.
Yeah. And I know you and Boogie gonna be over a lot of things, but I'm a pick my niche for the moment because there's a few things that I'm particular about. So, however it happened, I want to remind everyone that Larry Johnson came out as a JUCO product. And he was the first and still believed to be the only 2-time JUCO Player of the Year.
Nice.
So it's 2 years in JUCO, he was Player of the Year, the first and only to ever do that. Then from there, of course, he went on to UNLV, and then of course he, played a couple of years and moved on, back-to-back, appearances in the NCAA championship, winning one and losing one, both to Duke, beating Duke in 1990 and then losing to Duke in 1991.
Yeah, right? He blames himself for that loss, for that Duke loss. I remember seeing a podcast of him talking about that.
And then still with when it comes to student athletes, Gran-MaMah went back to school, and what does it see here? My apologies, guys. Yes, in 2007, got his Bachelor's of Arts in Social Science from UNLV.
Oh, nice.
So I wanted to be sure we cover that because those are key areas that, because it's not always how you start, it's how you finish. And when it comes to student athletes, even though you make all this money, in the pros being a professional, that's not necessarily defining all of who you are. And there's a whole lot of life to be lived. And what are you going to do with your life after basketball? So I think was crucial, for him and where he comes from. They went back and got his degree.
Nice. And that's a testament to see what he can show other kids what they can do in life, man. I only met him once in life, and he's a polarizing figure as far as height wise, and just brute physique was like, damn, bro, what are you eating? You know what I mean? Boogey Bob, man, let's jump to you, man, real quick, man. I know you got the stats for the stats out nerds out there, so give us your take on Mr. Gran-MaMah Larry Johnson.
So, you talk about a couple of you and Earl talked about how he's built, and I made me think about Megatron Calvin Johnson for, wide receiver that was built kind of like that. So, Earl, I sentiment there are some players that are ahead of their time, but man, would a Larry Johnson on this current Mavericks team be what? I mean, whoo, that would be something.
Scary. That would be scary.
Scary is right. So, before I get to the stats, he was born in Tyler. He's born in Tyler, Texas. He is one of the first local DFW products from Skyline. He played high school ball at Skyline. He was the number 1 pick in the draft. It wasn't even a question. But as both Wild Dog and Earl and you have branding, he's one of the first players that, name, image, and likeness wasn't even a term when he was playing. And very few players, if you weren't named Michael Jordan, NFL had branding, but the NBA was just starting when Larry Johnson, they were just starting with the branding. And so even kids today, even if it wasn't shoes, it's like you mentioned Gran-MaMah, everybody knows it's Larry Johnson. And it's kind of like if you go back to the commercial, Spike Lee and Michael Jordan, he's money. It's got to be the shoes. No, Morris, it's not the shoes. Money, it's got to be the shoes. No, Morris. So that kind of iconic branding from Larry Johnson, you just didn't have that in the 90s. He was 6'7", Earl, 6'7" power forward. They got him on the first pick the next year. They got Alonzo Mourning with a second pick. So even for all the accolades of Larry Johnson, to me, he wasn't even the best player on that Hornets team. Alonzo Mourning was the best player on that team. And let me switch for just a minute. So Charlotte Hornets had both Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning and traded them both. Yes. Traded them both. They had them together for 2 years and traded them. So here's the trades. It's July 14th, 1996. Charlotte traded Larry Johnson to the New York Knicks for Brad Lohaus and Anthony Mason. October 10th, 2001, he was waived by the New York Knicks. So you didn't get hardly anything for Larry Johnson. Here's the trades for Alonzo Mourning. He was drafted, as I said, second pick, November 3rd, 1995. Traded by the Hornets with LaRon Ellis and Pete Myers to the Miami Heat for Matt Geiger, Khalid Reeves, Glenn Rice, and a 1996 first-round pick.
Now, Glenn Rice was pretty nice back then.
Glenn Rice was nice. Glenn Rice was very nice.
And Glenn Rice became pretty iconic Hornets player. He was on our Mount Rushmore. In 2003, he signed as a free agent with the New Jersey Nets. In 2004, he was traded by the New Jersey Nets with Aaron Williams, Eric Williams, a 2005 first-round pick, a 2006 first-round pick, and was later to the Toronto Raptors for Vince Carter.
Oh, nice. That's crazy. I would have never thought that Larry Johnson went to Toronto. I think I should have looked further into his career.
2005, the Raptors, after all that, giving up all that, was waived. In 2005, the Miami Heat signed Alonzo Mourning. So you're talking about two very good players. And I mean, basically all they got out of it was Glenn Rice. So like at the time, it sounded like good trades, but that's what happens when you give up on your young talent too early.
But see, those two guys didn't get along.
I'm glad it's not me bringing it up. Thank you, Boogie. I'm glad it's not me bringing up dysfunction again.
Yeah, they did not like each other
at all.
They did not
They
stand
both
each
thought
other.
they were the guy. They both wanted to be the guy.
Yeah,
and which overflowed into the fight that Earl was talking about.
Yeah.
Sorry,
so I always bring the stats: 16.2 points per game, 7.5 rebounds per game, 3.3 assists. 10 seasons. He had knee trouble, but he only had 10 seasons. That's a pretty short career. When we've been going over player legacy, I bring up how many years they play it. That's a really short. He played 5 with the Hornets, 5 with the Knicks.
He had a Larry Bird.
He won Rookie of the Year in 91-92. He was only an All-Star 2 times. Yeah. You think of the player and you think, oh, he made a lot of All-Star teams. Now, granted, the East had a backside load of talent is the nice PG way to say it. But, there was a lot of talent in the East in the early 90s. So I can't fault him for not making the All-Star team. But here's the trivia. Okay, some of y'all may remember he was in the 92 dunk contest.
Yeah.
Who was this challenger?
Epic contest.
It goes to you, Big Mike. Who did he lose to in the dunk contest?
Ah, man. 92?
He played for the Suns. He also played for the Mavericks. And he was a part-time announcer for the Mavericks.
It was so epic that I remember. He said
you got it.
He said it.
What's the prize? I won.
Well, you both did. You both said Cedric Wallace.
All right, I'll take the T-shirt.
Because Cedric, I used to describe him, he's a guy that gets you 20 and you don't even have to run a play for him. He was that good of a player.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Ced, who was an announcer for a year or two, maybe when you were there with the Mavericks, he did some game time hosting.
I think he was right after I left.
Okay.
I think it was like a year right after I left.
I was in a dance contest in between the third and fourth quarter, and he was like the MC. And, when you have to strain your neck to look up at somebody, they're tall. But I told him I had admired him. And I mean, he was still pretty good when he played for the Mavericks. But, yeah, the dunk contest meant something back then. So if you want to watch some tape of just how powerful Larry Johnson was, go look at some tape from the dunk contest.
Speaking of the dunk contest, as far as Cedric Sabalas goes, he did blindfold himself, correct?
Yes,
that's the one.
Yes.
So I think that
contest,
I think he should not won because I think he could see. I don't believe that.
He's a gimmick.
Right.
I think he could see too.
Yeah.
My bad, Bob. Go ahead.
D Brown, I think he could see also.
Yeah, he did
he did.
Yeah.
But I think he could see also.
Yeah.
Well, and the cupcake, set the cupcake up on there.
Daryl Green.
Daryl Green.
Yep.
He was the one that pumped up his sneakers before he dunked.
D Brown.
Oh yeah, D Brown,
yeah.
Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
Man, we're gonna have to have a segment on that for sure, man. I gotta have you back for that one, man.
Definitely.
All right, we're gonna move along. You got anything else on that, Bob? Are you?
That's it.
Man, that was a big topic, man.
If I can mention real quick that a lot of time with the NBA and players, like with moving forward with the players union and how things got to this point, it sounds like little now, but I believe that Larry Johnson, his branding and his potential is part of the reason why there's so much money now. So in '93, Larry Johnson had the most lucrative contract in NBA history with 12 years and $84 million.
Now, oof.
Yes.
12 years, 84 million. That's not bad for us.
Yeah.
Marketing
so he made his legacy and contributions to players now because he helped bring the money.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go because Earl, we do stories on our channels too. We did one of Kobe, Michael Jordan's dad. Who's the other one we did on
Wayman Tisdale?
Yeah, we're gonna do Wayman Tisdale. Our next story is gonna be on North Dallas High School basketball, but we're definitely gonna have to reach back and look at the life and times of Larry Johnson. And I'm pretty sure he could have been an MVP candidate if he had his career extended as far as the injuries go. And speaking of MVP, the next topic we're going to talk about, and we're going to start with you, Wild Dog, for the MVP. I think Jason Tatum, like we mentioned earlier, is a good pick for that role right now. It's early in the season, but you have your thoughts on Luka, you got your Joker, and then Anthony Davis. There's quite a few, and Shea in Oklahoma. But let's kind of talk more about Jason Tatum, what he needs to do to become the MVP, Wild Dog, in your opinion.
I mean, we can't undo the man's DNA. You can't undo his existence. He is who he is. So, I mean, it's 2024 to 2025 season, and I just feel like it's me ball 8.0. That's just my opinion. That's just where I'm at on it. And so I know Boogie likes numbers. I mean, Vegas has him as plus 550. That's third. You know what I'm saying? So. And then Bleacher Report has him projected as the number 4 possibility as MVP. And then when I kind of looked around at him for this year to kind of have let's say, Wild Dog, let's have an open mind now. Let's not be no old dog. You know what I'm saying? So I looked at the games and it's like there's one game where he had double-digit assists. And then his shooting percentage was like over 600. Over 60-something percent, 66, over 66%.
Mm.
And so, but what I noticed is all the more efficient he is at shooting, then the more impactful he is as a team player with his assists and getting his other teammates involved. But on the contrast, if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. If he's having a rough shooting patch or shooting night, right? How do shooters get them out of any kind of degree of slump? They keep shooting. So he gets his points, but then his ability to have assists diminishes, down to 2, 4 if he's lucky, you know what I'm saying? And then his ability to get his teammates involved in the team ball diminishes. So that's my take on Tatum. And I still think he's still going to be somewhere still in he's still in that the middle zone, 3, 4, 5.
Okay. So race. Out of the top 10, you think he's 3, 4, 5, basically.
He's still staying in the same zone.
Currently he's averaging 30.2 points a game, 7.6 rebounds, 5.6 assists, and he's shooting. His field goal percentage is 46%, for almost 47. So he's not too bad as far as stat goes, but it's still early in the season, though. Yeah, you have anything else?
Don't lie. There's nothing I'm seeing, and I tried, that's changing my position on him. And I'm saying I don't like him. I'm saying I appreciate him for what he is, which is not an MVP.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna swing it to you, Bob, man. Your thoughts on the MVP race and how Tatum fits in there? Because my opinion, I don't think he's a good player, but he's not MVP caliber. And you can quote me on that, but what are your thoughts, Bob?
Well, like I've been saying last year and this summer when we talked about MVP, you have to have a year before you win it to set it up. And maybe this is his year, but I use one term: growth. You see growth in Tatum. He got benched on the Olympic, didn't even play in a couple games.
Mm-hmm.
So you're seeing him mature, you're seeing some growth. But to me, and this is just a hot sports opinion, he's not even the best player on the Celtics. Jaylen Brown is the best player on that team.
And we talked about that already, though, so I agree with
He
that.
made some waves.
I'm glad you said it. I'm
When
glad you said it, Boogie, not me.
I'm not afraid to voice a hot sports opinion, but film don't lie, or as you said, eyes don't lie. Like Jaylen Brown is until Tatum gets that point. Maybe for him to get MVP recognition, they got to trade Brown, and the Celtics aren't doing that. But the favorites to me are still the Joker and SGA. Luka, to me, he's falling out of the top 5 till they get till that team record gets around and those last shot. He's trying to play too much hero ball, in my opinion. In the running, 3 guys that weren't mentioned before the season started. Earl alluded to this earlier. Mm-hmm. Stephen Curry is having an MVP season. You take Klay Thompson away, and Golden State's got better. So, Stephen Curry has got to get some recognition there. And then if the Lakers stay healthy and keep the record that they've been going, you got to consider LeBron and AD. LeBron to get some sympathy votes because this may or may not be his last year. He signed a 2-year contract, but it is his 22nd season. And as Earl said, Anthony Davis, this is Anthony Davis that we saw in Kentucky. This Anthony Davis plays 80 some games, you have to qualify. You have to play 65 games. He played like 50 some odd last year. But if he meets that criteria of 65, then, Joel Embiid is going to fall by the wayside. Anthony Davis is one of those guys that scores 0 points and still dominate a game.
Yes, sir.
You go back to the NCAA championship with Kentucky. He didn't score, but he dominated the game. And AD came to play this year. That's just all there is to it.
And to bring it back to Luka Doncic, man, from what he was saying his last when they had the post-game interview with him, he said that he's getting used to playing off the ball. I think that's the point with him. He doesn't want to play off the ball, and he's ball dominant. And you got too many people now. Klay can play off the ball because that's what he's been doing in Golden State. But for Luka to be able to be Steph Curry or even in the conversation of MVP, he has to learn how to play off the ball and change up his game a little bit. Because to me, he's slowing up the offense, in my opinion. But it depends on what Jason Kidd does.
He's too predictable. Yeah. Which is why the Celtics were able to hold him down. And he's not going to the hole near as much, I don't think he's trying to save his body and not get beat up as much, but he's a big boy. He got in some kind of shape, but if you notice, he's not backing down the player near as much and not turn around. He's not going to the hole as much. He's just jacking up 3 after 3 after 3.
Yeah. And
I think Luka again will be able to keep himself in the middle of the pack. He'll keep himself in the conversation, but that turn to win it, like Boogie said, you really need a good solid year to set yourself up to change the narrative on yourself. So
yeah, and last year he had that year, but so did SGA. I would say, it's going to be tough to unseat the Joker, but voters don't like giving multiple awards to the same player. They wouldn't give Steve Nash a third one. They barely gave him, a second consecutive. So I can see the voters with recency bias and giving SGA. And face it, he don't have no Chet Holmgren or Hartenstein right now. Their tallest player is 6'7", or Jalen Williams. Their tallest player is 6'7", and they're still rocking and rolling.
Yeah. Earl, your thoughts? And so if you had to choose an MVP, like you had a vote, what would be some of the parameters for you choosing the MVP, and who would you choose for the 2024-2025 MVP candidate? And we talked about Jason Tatum in this particular conversation. So what would he have to do to become an MVP for this season?
Well, first I will say that Boogey Bob mentioned the name that I thought should have won it last year, and I think he's going to win it this year. I think SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I think he's going to be MVP this year. I thought he should have won last year. But when you have a guy like Nikola Jokic who's dominant and his numbers keep getting better every single year, you can't discount what he did the previous year when he won it. Um, but now I don't think Denver's team is as loaded as it was, or as balanced at least as it was. So I think his numbers are a little bit inflated because he has to do so much now. I think his team will have the record. The I think they're going to win the West, even without Chet for 2 months. I just think they're the best team in the conference. I think he's going to put up the individual numbers, but I go back to the word value, most valuable player.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not a player of the year. It's not the best player in the NBA. It's the most valuable player. And if I take Shea off of that team is not doing what it does.
Mm.
And you mentioned the tallest player on the team might be 6'7". The tallest player in their starting lineup right now is Shea Gilgeous-Alexander at 6'6" at point
Dang.
guard. And they're playing small around him. Um, and he's going out and dominating just the same. He's dictating the pace, the tempo, and he doesn't have the insane usage rate that Luka does. Luka has uh, the highest usage rate in the league, and that number comes down whenever um, Kyrie is playing. But when Kyrie is hurt, like he was last night, um, then Luka's usage rate goes right back up. Shea gets his numbers, I feel like, more so in the flow of the game. He doesn't take away from what the other team is doing, and they have some great young players in addition to him, but it's all centered around him and what he's able to do. So I think Shea is the most valuable player in the league. I think Jokic is the best player in the league, but I don't
Mm.
think the team is going to have as much success as they've been having. So I would say Shea is going to win it, in my opinion, going into
So,
this year. I do think Jason Tatum will be
mhm.
in that top three just because I think he has something to prove.
So you think if he continues with his 30 points a game and the assist ratio and rebounds, could he pass SGA if he continues on this route,
I
or what
don't
does he
think
need
so
to do?
because once Kristaps Porzingis comes back, then I feel like Boston has the best starting five and the best top six in the league. You have Derek White, who's a great player in his own right. You have Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum, Al Horford if he's starting, um, and
Drew
I think
Holiday.
what's that?
Drew
Or
Drew
Holiday.
Hardenstein. I think Boston just has uh, Drew Holiday. They have the most collection of talent, in my opinion, and I think that's going to work against whatever Jason Tatum does individually. I don't think OKC has the total roster that Boston has, and I think Shea will be able to get numbers without the complementary pieces, and the team record will still be as good as it was last year.
And I like what you stated when you said MVP, the V for valuable. Who's the most valuable player on the team? And I can see Tatum is not there yet because you got Jalen Brown in that squad who's really showed out in the finals and in the playoffs. So he really is the most valuable player on that team, in my
He
opinion.
is. And I think that's what Jason Kidd was kind of alluding to in the finals when he said he's their best player. I think he's the most valuable player because he defends the other team's best player and he still gets his offensive numbers at the same time. I think I think Jason Tatum is the best offensive player on that team, but I think the player that has the most responsibilities is Jalen Brown. What he's able to do as a two-way player.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
And
I mean,
like you said about the valuable player, there used to be an argument was if you take that player off the team, how many games do they win?
Right.
And if you
mm,
take SGA off of Oklahoma City Thunder, they'll still win some games, but they're not going to be much over 500.
Right.
If you take Tatum off of the Celtics, they're still going to rock and roll.
Yeah.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
still a top 4 or 5 seed in the East if you
Yeah.
take Jason Tatum off of that team.
That's
Yeah.
why Embiid won it a few years ago. You see, Sixers, they were number one, and then when Embiid got hurt, they went in a tailspin, and they've been in a tailspin this year, even with adding Paul George to Maxey. And Maxey's hurt now, but so Embiid, yeah. But your point to the Joker contains Caldwell Pope they lost and Bruce Brown they lost, and so they don't they're not spreading the wealth there as much because they don't have those players.
Right.
Yeah, facts. And speaking of teams that have MVPs, we're going to talk about this next guy. He's went through a health scare in the past few days, and I'm hoping he's getting better. And then his coaching tree is one of those amazing coaching trees that you can definitely can't throw a stick at it to break it down because it's been very great to what he's put together. We're going to bring it back to you, Bob. Let's talk about Greg Popovich. I'm sorry, respect to the man, Greg Popovich, man. He's going through a little bit of a struggle as far as his health wise, but let's kind of talk about his career, what he did for the San Antonio Spurs, and the coaching tree that he's built around himself. And we'll, get your opinion on it. What's your thoughts on Greg Popovich?
Well, first off, our prayers go out to Greg Popovich that you recover fully, and so he's not replaceable. He just said there's certain individuals, the culture, the Lakers, how many coaches they've gone through after Pat Riley left. They had Phil Jackson for a while, and Phil Jackson was the irreplaceable Bulls and the Lakers. Popovich, if you haven't followed, he was GM, and he fired the coach
I
and
remember that.
talked him into being the coach. He didn't want to be the coach. He just wanted to be a GM. And I think he's like 75 now. Him and Pat Riley are still kicking and going. So yeah, the coaching tree, as Wild Dog has talked about for years. I'm going to talk about the type of coach that if Popovich doesn't go past this year as far as coaching, and props uh, to Greg Popovich, he brought on, wasn't it Becky Hammonds? He brought on the
Mm-hmm.
woman as an assistant coach. So he's he gets the accolades for the rings, but he's been a trailblazer in other areas like bringing women in to coach. But the type of coach that I think the Spurs would go with, sometimes ex-players are mentioned, but think of Bud Holtz, who's coaching now,
Mm-hmm.
or Mike Brown.
Mike
Those,
Brown. Yeah.
those two type of coaches are the kind of guys I think you would see replace Popovich, because both of those guys they're good coaches, but they're development. And I think that's where Popovich exceeds everybody else's. He's really good at developing players and letting them turn the corner, as Wild Dog talks about. Rick Carlisle, you got him a rookie. Luka was one of the first rookies he ever started and gave playing time to. Like you were on the bench if you played for Carlisle, and Carlisle's a great coach. But Popovich is more than just a coach. I'll give you he's the Bill Belichick of the NBA. That's how powerful Popovich is.
Definitely.
Man, he was an amazing coach. It still is. I know that he has the coaching tree that a lot of people wish they had, and out of those coaching trees, some of those coaches, Steve Kerr won 3 championships. There's been quite a few. And Bolthauser, he's won one, and then Doc Rivers won one that people didn't know that he also coached under Popovich. We're going to swing it to you, Wild Dog, as far as Popovich goes, and give me your thoughts on what he has gave the league as far as his career goes.
I mean, with the league, it's like, Popovich come from Air Force Academy. So it's like, just that, that the strength and work ethic and structure, even, a blueprint, so what has worked for hundreds of years and through, generations, Popovich brought that legacy, then everything he does, being an executive, being a president, being the GM, and then but seeing where he had to step in, and just regardless of what has to happen, you just have to do what's right at the right time, and then created one of the best, what we consider one of the best organizations in all of sports. You know, so just giving a great example of how it's done, setting the blueprint no matter what, even to what cost, you know, holding true to your culture and laying the blueprint and following the course. So I want to share a conversation that I had with Michael Finley so many years ago. I want to say it was well over 10 years ago. And Mike Finley was, I guess, was retired at the time. And we were talking about the Spurs. And I was like, well, how long is Pop going to continue to coach? And
now, before you start that, people need to know that Michael Finley did play for the Spurs at one time.
He did play for the Spurs and won a championship with the Spurs. And so I was like, Finley, what the Spirit is showing me, and what, because I watch all kind of basketball, female, everything, right? And I was like, Finley, you need to look at Becky Hammond, and if you like what you see, you should recommend that she join the Spurs coaching staff. And then you need to come back to Dallas and be groomed for ownership, basically like how to run an organization for being executive. And then that's what happened. So Becky Hammond ended up joining the Spurs staff. Michael Finley came home, right? And now he's assistant to Nico. And Becky Hammond has went on to go be the head coach of the Las Vegas Aces and win championships.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's way past overdue. Okay, way past overdue for Pop to peel back his responsibilities to president only, right? And give the reins over to Becky Hammond.
You think that's a possibility, though? I mean, it's a male-dominated sport. I don't know how players would take to that. I mean, not saying that she can't do the job, but that's going to be a hard sell to a lot of fans, especially in San Antonio.
I wasn't trying to use exactly. I wasn't trying to use any hot air. I was trying to break down at how long ago that was laid out.
Right.
Her coming to the Spurs and then her success in the WNBA. That's not all by accident. And if her being a Hall of Famer and being successful at the WNBA is not enough for her to get the opportunity, then the Spurs organization and the Spurs nation, then they're going to get what they deserve if they can. Yeah.
So who would you have taken the ranks after Popovich retired?
I didn't hear the question.
I was asking, who would you have taken over the ranks if Popovich retires?
Yeah, Becky Hammond.
Oh, you have her. Okay.
I saw it as a basketball fan, as someone who's doesn't have any limitations on male, female, or this and that, whatever. Like the mind of basketball is the mind of basketball.
Facts.
And then what I saw in the Spirit, and then the conversation that Finley and I had, and then Finley himself, with confirmation, gave recommendation of her. So someone that I also know, knows basketball so very well. So it wasn't just about what I was seeing in the Spirit and what I even saw myself, rolled it over, had the conversation with Finley. And then you see how it's all been laid out over these years. It's past due.
Gotcha. And Bob, you had something you want to add to it?
I think probably obviously you'll hear some of his past players, but Tony Parker is prominently embedded in the French league. I wouldn't be surprised that he would bring Tony Parker back. He's an owner and president. I'm not sure if he's in coaching. He's been in coaching, but I think you'd see Tony Parker over Ginobili simply because he's already got a connection and a relationship with the Wembanyama.
Makes sense. Earl, your thoughts on Greg Popovich, the career, the legacy, and what he's brought to not only San Antonio but the NBA?
Yeah, I would say in terms of the old guard of the NBA, he is the equivalent to Bob Knight in the college game.
Yeah.
He's the closest thing that we have to a Red Auerbach or I don't even think Phil Jackson would be in that realm because he was the Zen master. He was more so mentally getting you prepared. In terms of being just a general of men in basketball, that's Pop. Uh, he teaches you the discipline that you need uh, to be a champion. He teaches you the structure of being a champion. He also closes off the outside world and says, our team is our family. Not to take you away from your family, but when you're in this facility, this gym, during your basketball hours, this is your family. Um, and he's that old school coach to do so. He's been doing it for a long time, and he's the best to ever do it, in my opinion. Um,
He reminds me a lot of Pat Riley for so many reasons. I'm not quite sure why he reminds me of Pat Riley, but it's just two of them are so similar. But
it's the way of doing things.
yeah.
That's that old guard that I would say, just in terms of the discipline, what we're going to do, what we're not going to do. But like Pat Riley had that, if the other team falls down, don't help them up. If you help them up, you're going to get fined. You might end up on the bench for the rest of the game. Like they were kind of different in that sense, but I think their commitment to winning and doing it the right way is the same. I would agree with. In terms of being his replacement, if he steps away, and first of all, I want to send my prayers to him after a mild stroke. That's something very seriously. So I don't want him to feel like he has to rush back for the game of basketball. That's way bigger. And he has an outside life away from that. Great husband. He has his own wine. A lot of people don't realize he has his own vineyard. So like he'll be fine if he steps away. It's more so about his love of the game and what he can still bring to the game. But in terms of a replacement, I think Wild Dog and I were on the same page with Becky Hammond. I think her knowledge of the game, her ability to relate to athletes, men and women. When she was an assistant with the Spurs, no one didn't listen to what she had to say in terms of authority. I think she translates. She was a great player in her own right, but she's able to translate her knowledge of the game to women and men. So I think that would be a great replacement. I thought Mike Boonholzer, uh,
Boonhauser.
would be in terms of that. You talked about his coaching tree. That would be someone. I'm going to say something that I might be ahead of my time to say because he is a current player. He might not be ready to move into coaching. Chris Paul. You mentioned Tony Parker, but Chris Paul is already an extension of the head coach. He's a coach on the floor, and I think everyone will say one day he will be coach. It's just a matter of when that might be. But you're seeing it with guys like JJ Redick, uh, former players, Jason Kidd, can move into that coaching ranks a lot sooner than a lot of people would expect. So whenever Chris Paul is ready to step away, he might be someone to look at filling in that hole if Pop does decide to step away.
Thanks. And mad respect to Pops, man, for what he did, for what he done for the city of San Antonio. Even though I'm not a fan of the city, that's where my wife was born. So I have to respect it at that level. But yeah, the city has. Even though they don't have a football team, but that basketball team, man, he's brought a lot of money and jobs and all kind of eyes on the city itself, man. Even though Charles Barkley want to talk crap about the women there, but the city in general, man, it's not too bad. It's kind of old for me as far as the field, but what San Antonio Spurs has done for that city, man, as far as championships, has made it to be a respectable city and some place people would like to visit just to see what it's all about.
Definitely, and I would say
San Antonio Spurs started off as the Dallas Chaparrals.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you were saying, Earl?
I just wanted to add the first game, Kawhi Leonard came back with Toronto after he left San Antonio, and fans were booing Kawhi, and Pop got on the PA.
I remember that.
And said, "Hey, no, like this guy gave us everything when he was here. Like we're not going to be that type of fan base. We're not going to be that type of organization." He was a great Spur, and now he's going to be great in his own right after he leaves here. And I gained a lot of respect for him when he did that.
Yes.
That was awesome.
And I remember that because it was all over ESPN and all that, the way he berated the fans, customers. But if you, the players that didn't play for him that were on other teams had respect for Popovich. And, Dallas gave a pretty good send-off for Dirk Nowitzki.
Yep. I was
He played
about to say that.
in San Antonio.
Yep.
And they showed video, but Popovich came over and gave flowers and props to Dirk Nowitzki.
Yes.
About how much he admired Dirk and his ethic. So, and when you mentioned old school, I thought about George Karl. George Karl used to have those same kind of attributes.
Yeah.
Thanks. Man, guys, what an amazing show, man. Earl, we are so blessed to have you on today, man. We'll have to do it again. There's other episodes we're gonna do it on. I'm sure that if you ever want to hop on again, like we said in the beginning, just let us know. We'll jump you on, man. We do it every Friday, just about. Maybe in the holidays we'll kind of chop it up, not do it every Friday to give people time to kind of be with family and all that stuff. But for the most part, we're here every Friday trying to, woo our audience with who we got, and our topics are always amazing, as you can see. So as we close out, Wild Dog, tell the people where they can find you on these social media streets, giving you handles and all that good stuff, my guy.
Hey, I don't be doing too much, but you can always find me on YouTube, baby. Wild Dog 357. That's Wild DOGG 357. And you can always find me on here. Swish for real, baby. 1, 2, 3. Eins, zwei, drei, vier. There we go.
Boogey Bob, tell these people where they can find you at, man. Give me your social media handles in these internet streets.
Well, my big support is Swish for real. And you can find me at Boogey Bob, but there's right there, Swish for real. Subscribe. It's right up there. Swish for real. It's right down there. Subscribe. Swish for real.
Share and subscribe. And our co-host, our esteemed guest, Earl K. Sneed, man. Tell the people where they can find you at. Give me your social media handles, man. And again, we appreciate you coming on, but speak to the people.
Yeah, I'm available anytime you guys want to have me back. Earl K. Sneed on X, not Twitter, or if you still follow Twitter, I still do. Instagram, Facebook, everything is Earl K. Sneed. You can always find me, and hopefully I'll hear back from you guys if you want to have me back on.
Man, it's been a pleasure, guys. Swish for real has been a great show. We're gonna let you guys have your night back. We'll check in with you next time, guys. Awesome. Have a great one, man. Swish for real, and we're out.